How many of you have had Mr. Pat as a teacher? Please raise your hand if you have. Yeah. Now, those of you with your hands raised must be familiar with his extremely liberal use of the phrase weak sauce, or as the updated version reads, weak fish. Mr. Pat often delivers this one-liner when one of us does not perform to our full potential. When we try to make excuses, complain, or claim something is impossible, Mr. Pat will respond by saying our actions are weak fish. Initially, I passed this off as playful ribbing, or at most, a subtle motivational tactic. It meant nothing more to me than another one of his jokes. Yet this changed after a particular weak fish performance of mine on a physics test. I told Mr. Pat that I did not know why I hadn't done better, and he simply responded by calling me a weak fish. And then I understood. Weak fish meant something completely different. It meant no excuses. It meant not searching for a way to deflect responsibility, when in truth all responsibility was upon us. A profound truth had been slipping by me each time he uttered his favorite catchphrase. Mr. Pat was trying to tell me that I should not be making excuses. There were no excuses that would ever legitimize my complaints, so why was I even attempting? It was time to man up and do something about my poor performance. Instead of wasting time making feeble excuses, I should be working towards a better performance on my next assessment. As I thought more about weak fish, I realized we are all too prone to making excuses. We have been told, as students at an elite private institution, that we cannot do absolutely everything the school expects of us. Some of our peers and mentors may, with good intentions of course, reassure us that it is acceptable if we do not always perform at the highest level, because things can happen. This kind of advice, however, is negatively infectious. We begin to believe that performing to our fullest potential is not the bare minimum. When failure seems inevitable, our worry is lessened by the realization that we are not expected to complete everything in first place. If we hope to grow as individuals, we must move away from our tendency to rely on excuses. We make excuses to deflect blame and lessen the guilt we feel when we do not accomplish our goals. By learning to shoulder the full repercussions of our performances and actions, we will begin to adjust our actions to avoid failure at all costs. We will be averse to the feeling of failure and will thereby refuse to accept it. Living life without making any excuses is extremely difficult. In fact, it is nearly impossible. I am trying harder than ever to accept full responsibility for my actions. Those of you who interact with me know that I pride myself on being brutally honest with myself and those around me. It's challenging to not make excuses when having built over 16 years of my life is telling me that it is okay to deflect blame. But I'm trying. I challenge every single one of you to live without making excuses, even if they are legitimate. You don't need to approach it with the goal of never making excuses again. Begin by refraining from making excuses for a single day. Then make it another day. Then a week. Before you know it, excuses will be an almost negligible part of your life. That is how we are meant to live. We are meant to face the consequences of what we do and perform to our fullest potential. Without excuses, we learn from our mistakes and grow as individuals. Collectively, let us abstain from making excuses. Let us support one another. On that next assessment, let us take full responsibility for the outcome. Let us not blame the teachers, or the lack of time, or the unfairness of the test. Instead, let us understand how we can improve and why we do not perform to our full potential. That is all I can ask of you. Take Mr. Pat's words with you, as I have, and live by them. It's worth it, trust me. I look out and I see a chapel full of capable individuals and leaders with great potential for growth and success later on in life. We will all follow different career paths, If there's one thing we will not be, we will not be weak fish. Thank you.